Hi, it's Chris White, and in this video I want to talk about how to get lists of data from HGSI version 8 into EdgeRater. Previously I talked about how to export the entire database from HGSI into Metastock folder on your hard drive so that you end up with essentially something that's very similar to the Quotes Plus database. And just as a refresh, here is my Metastock tree. So I exported to the root of Metastock data, and then I put all securities into a subdirectory, and there were more than 6,000 securities, so it created a second directory and put the extra or overflow symbols in there. And I also exported major market indexes because they're not part of all securities. So now essentially I have this as my database on my hard drive, which I can access from other applications. So I went ahead and I set EdgeRater up so that it could refer to that location, and all I did there was come in and select my Metastock provider and chose the root location for Metastock data. So essentially I have something now that's set up very similar to Quotes Plus. The trick now is that there are certain cases where you want specific lists of data, and the way that you would do that is within HGSI you have the ability to export groups as lists. So for instance, the S&P 1500 list is right here under major market index components, and it has a list of all of the symbols that are within that particular index. Well, under File you can do export groups as lists, and you can choose the location of your EdgeRater symbol lists folder, and that is always under your Documents folder, EdgeRater symbol lists. And HGSI will choose to export it as a .lst file, which is perfectly fine. And if you say exclude the indexes from here and you say export as symbol comma name, then I'll show you exactly what is going to happen. Let's bring up the actual folder itself. You see right now it only has the 20 high probability ETFs list. Now if I say export that group and bring this back in here, we now see that there is the S&P 1500 LST file. If I open this up into something like Notepad, I have a text viewing application here. You see it's just all it is symbol comma name, just all the way down through to the end of that list. So EdgeRater is capable of reading that location, the symbol list's location, and detecting all of the lists that are in there. So what I mean by that is we'll come back into EdgeRater, and now in any of the places where you can look at lists, if you do the drop-down application, the drop-down button, you'll see that the S&P 1500 LST file is now here. But what I need to set up first is to edit this, and I'll click on Edit, and just make sure that the data provider for this list is set to be the Metastock provider. If it's not, and I think sometimes by default it gets set to Yahoo, you can just switch it back over to Metastock and make sure to save this so that EdgeRater knows where to get the data for these symbols. You can look at the data snapshot and data update options, but the lists have those facilities too. And all you need to do is hit refresh or update data, and what's going to happen is now you have your Metastock database set up on the file system. EdgeRater is now using this list to go in and extract the data from that Metastock location. So it's very, very similar to the way that Quotes Plus used to work. And it's going to build up its little data snapshot for this list. And you can do this on a daily basis. When you come into EdgeRater, you just say update list data, and it will go ahead and fetch the data determined by the settings that you have in here in your data update options. So it's only fetching the most recent 2 years worth of data in this case, but you can set it to fetch a specific date range if you so wish. This is nearly finished. As you can see at the bottom, we have essentially built this list now, and if you look at the data snapshot, you'll see that we have data for each of these symbols from 11/3/2009 to 11/2/2011. And so now this list is just here available for doing any of the testing or the reports that you would normally do within EdgeRater. A quick way to, if you have multiple lists, there's a symbol lists dialog box which shows you all of the lists that are currently on your system, and if you wanted to update, say, all of them at once, you can check them off here and then just say update list data, and it'll go through each one in turn to update it. So once you have your lists built, then I was saying that there is the %b buckets template report, which instead of just going directly out to the Metastock database to get its data like the US market summary template does, the %b bucket template report uses whatever list is present or configured within this drop-down. So for this one, always make sure to choose the correct list that you want to run that report on. And I'm going to choose the S&P 1500 here, and I don't need to update list data because you remember I just already did that, and I can just say run. The report will run. The status of the report is displayed in the bar down here, the progress bar. You can see it's generating all of the data right now. When it has completed, what will happen is that this front page of the report will change to let you know that it has finished, and the front page of the report is the chart showing you the %b bucket information. So that's how you would go about using lists or groups from within High Growth Stock Investor. You just basically export whatever group you're interested in, be it a ready-made reference group or one of your own user groups, and you export it to the root of the EdgeRater symbol lists folder, and you make sure the data provider is set up for that list to point to Metastock. So you can always look at the symbol list here. You can say, what's my data provider for this particular list, and it's Metastock. For instance, I've also got my high probability ETFs, and my data provider for that is set to Yahoo, so it's fetching that data from the web. We're getting it from Yahoo to populate that list. So each list can have its own separate data provider configured. The thing to remember is that some of these reports don't use lists, like the US market summary template doesn't actually use a list. It just fetches whatever symbols it finds in here and goes to the default data provider to get that data. So that's it, how to get lists from HGSI version 8 and use them within EdgeRater. Thanks for listening.